This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So, Matt, I don't know if you've heard about this before, but I mean, you've heard about buyer's remorse, right? Like buying a car, buying a phone, buying whatever.
Sure, absolutely.
People experience that when they purchase homes as well.
A buyer's remorse after
Absolutely.
all the time and energy you went into buying your house. Obviously, you researched it, you compared with dozens of other homes. You spent hours looking at every little aspect of the home, doing,
Home inspections, pest inspections,
all that.
Yeah.
After all of that, now you decide, well, what's the emotion? What is the thought afterwards? And how much after the close do they have that buyer's remorse?
So the thing to keep in mind is this is a huge transaction. And
have you ever had buyer's remorse for any of the homes you've purchased? I haven't.
I probably, on every single house I've purchased, at one point I've had buyer's remorse. And
Wow.
then the other side of the coin is I've had seller's remorse. Like, I'm like, dang it, I should not have sold that property.
You're just never happy.
I'm just never happy. Well, it's just like you second guess yourself. Oftentimes it's like, what did I just do?
Right.
Like I remember the first time I bought a house, I closed on it, and when you buy a home, a lot of the closing costs or some of the closing costs include that first month or even that first 2 months worth of payments. Right. But I remember that first time I had to make the payment, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is going to come again next month and then next month and then what? Am I really qualified for this? And so, going from, renting to all of a sudden now this is all on my shoulders, what can cause people to have buyer's remorse, especially for first-time home buyers, because they're like, what did I do?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, you get the supplemental tax bill, and then you're like, oh man, when the hits just do not stop coming, because you have now the monthly payment, you have the supplemental tax bill where now it's a huge, large chunk, and then now things are breaking, and now it's your responsibility to fix it. Now you don't like your neighbors, right? You may have done all your due diligence on the house, but how are the neighbors? Did they got a yappy dog that you can't shut up?
Yeah.
And so now you're dealing with that. And you're like, I have to hear that dog for the next 30 years. And so there's a lot of people that experience it, but the ones that really get me and the ones that were the ones that bought in 2021. The people that bought in 2021 are experiencing a lot of buyer's remorse right now because, and again, I'm painting with broad brushes. If you bought in 2021, you love your house, fantastic. I'm not directing this at you, but a lot of people felt pressured to buy a home because, again, it's the American dream. It's what people aspire to, and it's what you need to do to be an adult, to have a family. To if you love your family, you're gonna buy a house, right? And so a lot of people were in that stage in 2021, and the market was just crazy. And so they were, bidding $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 over list.
Yeah.
And now they're locked into this home, and then interest rates started going up in, I think it was 2022, early mid 2022, and now people are in like 5%, 6%, 7% interest rate loans. And they're like, man, I overpaid for the house. Because this is a very key thing. Just because you own a house does not mean you're going to make money when you sell the house.
Right, but in 2021, interest rates weren't that bad.
They weren't that bad.
So people were overpaying maybe.
They were
especially
overpaying.
People from the Bay Area when you had these cash bidding wars, right?
Yep.
And so even though maybe they overpaid, at least their interest rate is not astronomical unless they refinanced for some dumb reason.
But the purchase price, so what most people don't realize about real estate, and this is very key to understand, if you're trying to make money in real estate, you make your money when you buy. That's when you make your money. You don't realize it until you sell, but you make, or until if it's a rental property, it starts cash flowing, but you make your money when you buy. And so a lot of people were pressured into placing bids, whether it was the agent, whether it was themselves, whether it was just society in general. They're like, interest rates are so low, now's the time to get a great deal on a house, lock this low interest rate in, and you overpaid for a house that maybe now you don't like. Well, you bought wrong. And so now if you're looking to sell, 2, 3, 4 years later, you might not be making any money. You might be coming out of pocket on those deals.
You're upside down.
You're upside down. And so, not even upside down, it's just the market's been flat. And so you can't, when you sell a house, it's typically, 8 to 10% of the purchase price is what it costs you to sell the home. So if you bought a house for $600,000 and now it's worth $650,000, you might be coming out $10,000 in order to make that sale take place. And so that's why people tend to experience some buyer's remorse. They got pressured into a situation, they bought wrong, they it wasn't right for their situation. Maybe they over leveraged themselves.
But would you say that they're only experiencing that buyer's remorse when it comes to selling? If they stay in the house, are they still experiencing that buyer's remorse because, oh my goodness, I got to pay this mortgage every month?
Well, it's also like if like you don't know what you don't know until you move into the house, and so everything may have looked fine, and sometimes there's things that weren't caught on the on the inspection reports. Sometimes the pool pump goes out right when you're in transition from one job to the other, and you're like, how am I going to pay for this and that, or the AC goes out. Like there's just a lot of overhead, and most people aren't like you hear. There's this golden story about home ownership, about how it's the best thing ever.
Sure,
you're gonna you see the boomers bought a house for $10,000 with an orange down payment. And now they're selling it for $800,000, $900,000. And you hear that story and you're like, hey, I want that.
Sure.
And then you get into it and you're like, whoa, they were in that house for 40 years. Like that's part. And during that 40 years, they replaced the roof twice. They installed AC. They had a lot of maintenance to the property. And so you just want to make sure when you're buying a house that you understand it's not just about the down payment and the monthly. It's about the location. It's about the neighbors. It's about everything.
So go slow and think it through. Don't rush into it. Is that what you're saying?
Don't rush into it, and just
don't give into the pressure either.
Exactly. That's the big thing. Don't give into the pressure, because oftentimes people the realtor doesn't know what's going on in between your ears.
Right.
And so, but if you're feeling this pressure that this is what you have to do, I would just encourage you to just tap the brakes, make sure that you're comfortable with the payment. That's the other thing too, is sometimes the payment, even though you can technically afford it. I met with a gentleman yesterday. He's like, Johnny, I'm house poor. I can make my payment. I just don't want to keep making this payment because I can't afford to do anything else with my life. And so just make sure you're not pressured in that situation to where you're house poor, to maybe where you're overpaying, to maybe where family members are saying, hey, you need to do this if you love so-and-so. Then, I would just don't give into the pressure.
Yeah. So they should obviously reach out to you where they're not going to feel any of that pressure.
Oh, yeah. We have a strict zero pressure policy company, zero pressure policy at our company. So if you want to reach out to us, go to madeformorerealty.com. You'll see we have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google, most highly rated company in the area. And if you want out of a situation, if you want to cancel the listing, if you don't want to work with us, if you think we're not, worth whatever it is we've agreed to, then you can cancel it. Rip up the contract anytime. We'll part as friends. We want to earn your business, not lock you into a contract.